Hi, I'm Ren. Now, if you're like me, a motorsport fan who grew up in a country without a long history of racing, one of your biggest dreams as a kid was always for Formula 1 to host a Grand Prix in your homeland. Having a race right in your backyard would be awesome. You wouldn't have to bother with pesky plane tickets to go and see a Grand Prix, and it'd be much easier to convince your parents. You'd spend hours poring over maps and drawing up circuits in notebooks, planning for the day when Bernie or Liberty came knocking. For me, this homeland is Hong Kong, a vibrant city of over 7 million people located on the coast of the South China Sea. For a multitude of reasons, having a Grand Prix here always seemed low on the possibility rankings, but times change, and I'm here to tell you why in the current climate a Hong Kong Grand Prix makes sense, and how it just might actually happen. Now, as I alluded to, Hong Kong isn't exactly a motorsport mecca. We hosted Formula E for a few years before the pro-democracy protests and COVID-19 pandemic put the kibosh on that endeavour, and that's about it. However, the Pearl River Delta, or whatever you're supposed to call it now, is no stranger to a bit of racing. Our fellow special administrative region across the water, Macau, has hosted the famous Macau Grand Prix for decades on the unforgiving Goya Street Circuit, while just north of that is the permanent circuit at Zhuhai, which was originally built in the late 90s with the intent of hosting Formula 1, although that never came to pass and the Chinese Grand Prix eventually emerged in Shanghai in 2004. However, this could all change soon, thanks to a little engineering project called the North Lantau Reclamation. This 600 billion Hong Kong dollar plan involves the creation of several artificial islands around our western island of Lantau. And as part of this project, Hong Kong's Home Affairs Bureau is considering the construction of a permanent motor racing circuit. The Hong Kong Automobile Association has welcomed this renewed push, saying that Hong Kong is lagging behind China and other major countries in Asia due to its lack of a track. With the central harbourfront area that was originally used for Formula E being repurposed, a new location for motorsport is needed. Their main goal with this venue is not to entice Formula 1, they want to start by bringing Formula E back to the city, but this is where another important player comes in, F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali. In an interview with The Race, Domenicali said that it was 100% realistic for Formula 1 to host a second race in China. This came off the back of the Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai extending its deal until 2025, despite the fact that it won't feature on the 2022 calendar due to China's strict travel regulations. This caused much backlash from fans who are tired of F1's two-faced attitude towards human rights, but ultimately, money talks, and China has a lot of it. Combine this with Guan Yu Zhou becoming China's first F1 driver this year, and the motives are all there. So why do I think that this second Chinese race could be held in Hong Kong? Firstly, I think that the people working on the North Lantau Reclamation would be crazy not to build their potential track to FIA Grade 1 standards. Sure, Formula E doesn't need anything anywhere near that, they'll race anywhere, but a higher grade track would serve well for attracting other series to the city, like, I don't know, Formula 1. Perhaps more importantly though, a Grand Prix would help to reassert Hong Kong as an international hub after the events of recent years. The protests, resultant national security law, and our continuously draconian travel restrictions during the pandemic have really impacted Hong Kong's status as a centre for business and trade. Notably, our approach to COVID-19 has been focused on maintaining COVID-0 in order to try and reopen the border with mainland China, as opposed to other business hubs which have adopted the global attitude of living with the virus. Most notable among them is Singapore, Hong Kong's biggest rival in the Asian business sphere, which, need I remind you, has had a Grand Prix for years. A Hong Kong GP could be just what's needed to bring the spotlight back to the city. Point is, it makes sense, and I want to see it. From a visual perspective, F1 cars racing with Hong Kong's skyline as a backdrop would be on the level of racing in London or New York, one of the true visual spectacles of the season. So what do you think? Would you welcome the addition of Hong Kong to the F1 calendar, or should they stop adding these terrible flyaway races in questionable nations? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!